American Motors Corporation, better known simply as AMC, has always occupied an unusual space in the history of Detroit iron, overshadowed by the big three of General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. AMC often had to survive by being scrappy, innovative, and willing to take risks that the giants could afford to ignore. While the company is best remembered for its economy cars, offbeat styling, and eventual merger into Chrysler, AMC actually dipped its toes into the performance market much earlier than most people realize. In fact, as far back as 1957, AMC was already experimenting with high-output vehicles. The Rambler Rebel of that year was a four-door family sedan that hit a near 300 horsepower V8 under its hood, a surprising amount of grunt in an era when such numbers were the domain of serious hot rods and large luxury cruisers. This early flirtation with power hinted at what AMC engineers could do when given the green light, but the company would wait more than a decade before fully embracing the emerging muscle car culture sweeping the United States. By 1968, the muscle car wars were raging at full tilt. Ford's Mustang had kicked off the pony car revolution in 1964, Chevrolet had responded with the Camaro in 1967, and Dodge and Plymouth were filling showrooms with tire-shredding intermediates. AMC, typically the conservative outsider, realized it couldn't afford to sit out a segment that was increasingly dominating headlines, drag strips, and young buyers' imaginations. Thus, in 1968, AMC unveiled not just one but two performance machines that would mark its serious entry into this high-octane battlefield. The first was the Javelin, a proper pony car aimed directly at the Mustang, Camaro, Barracuda, and Firebird. With long, sleek lines, a choice of 6-cylinder or V8 engines, and available high-performance packages, the Javelin instantly gave AMC a credible contender in the hottest new segment of the decade. But alongside it came a car that was even more intriguing. The AMX. At first glance, the AMX looked like a smaller, shorter Javelin that had been chopped down to essentials. But it was more than just that. What set it apart wasn't merely its styling or its power, but its configuration. While the Javelin, like every other pony car on the market, offered a rear seat to maintain everyday practicality, the AMX stripped it away entirely. It was a true two-seater, and in the world of American performance cars, that made it stand in a class of its own. In fact, the only other American car with a two-seat sports configuration in 1968 was the Chevrolet Corvette. The Corvette, of course, was a legend in the making, already firmly established as America's premier sports car. But here came little AMC, daring to challenge Chevrolet on its own turf. The AMX shared a similar wheelbase to the Corvette, gave buyers a choice of powerful V8 engines, and wrapped it all in distinctive AMC sheet metal. Technically speaking, it was much closer to a sports car than to a muscle car, though its engines, marketing, and straight-line speed credentials kept it firmly within the muscle car conversation. Despite these promising ingredients, the AMX never became the commercial hit that AMC hoped it would be. While the Corvette routinely moved tens of thousands of units each year, the 1969 model alone sold over 38,000 examples. The AMX never managed to crest the 10,000 unit threshold annually. From 1968 through 1970, its entire production run totaled just 19,134 cars. By the standards of the era when GTOs, Chargers, and Mustangs were everywhere, this made the AMX a rare sight indeed. In 1970, AMC decided to discontinue the standalone AMX body style. Although the nameplate lived on as a high-performance variant of the Javelin through the early 1970s. Half a century later, the AMX remains one of those fascinating footnotes in the golden era of American performance. It had the power, the looks, and the rarity, but it never achieved the cult-like devotion or sky-high values that its contemporaries from Ford, Chevy, and Dodge have earned. To this day, It's an underdog in the classic car market, a car that turns heads among enthusiasts but still lags far behind in auction prices, making it an intriguing option for collectors willing to look beyond the obvious choices. I was reminded of this status recently when I came across a stunning example of a 1970 AMX at a car show in San Diego, California. Among rows of Camaros, GTOs, and Mustangs, the bright green AMC stood out like a jewel. Even in a sea of bold paint jobs and polished chrome, there was something immediately magnetic about it. Part of that appeal came from the color itself. AMC, ever eager to grab attention despite its smaller budget, offered what it called the Big Bad color lineup in 1970. These included Big Bad Blue, Big Bad Orange, and Big Bad Green. Each was unapologetically bold, bordering on outrageous, and perfectly suited to an era when car buyers weren't afraid of loud hues. The example before me wore Big Bad Green, a vivid, almost neon-like shade that practically glowed in the California sun. It was impossible to ignore, and yet it didn't come across as garish. More like a proud statement that this car wasn't going to be mistaken for anything else on the road. Opening the door revealed a tan and brown interior. At first, the combination of earthy tones against that screaming green exterior seemed like an odd pairing, but it somehow worked. The richness of the leather and the restrained interior palette grounded the car's flamboyant exterior, giving it a touch of sophistication. Seeing leather in an AMX was always a treat, given that many were ordered with simpler vinyl interiors, and the condition of this cabin suggested careful ownership. Everything appeared clean, intact, and faithful to the car's original vibe. One of the details that caught my eye was the set of Craigar wheels. Chrome, deep dish, and quintessentially period correct, they suggested the kind of tasteful Day 2 modifications owners often performed not long after driving a car off the lot. While purists might frown at anything non-stock, the Craigars didn't feel out of place. They enhanced the AMX's stance and swagger without betraying its original character. Talking to the current owner, I learned he was a dedicated AMC enthusiast with a sizable collection, which gave me confidence that he had preserved the important elements of originality, including that rare Big Bad green paint. Unfortunately, the hood remained closed, but I was told the car carried AMC's 390 cubic inch V8. In 1970, buyers could choose between a 360 cubic inch engine or the larger 390. The latter, producing 325 horsepower and a stout 430 pound-feet of torque, was the top dog of the lineup. With a 4-barrel carburetor and plenty of low-end grunt, the 390 gave the relatively lightweight AMX impressive straight-line performance. Coupled with a 4-speed manual gearbox, as this particular car had, it offered a genuinely exciting driving experience, one that rivaled many of its better-known competitors in terms of rarity. The specs of this car made it all the more special. AMC built only 4,116 AMXs in 1970, making it the rarest model year of the original run. Of those, just 2,533 received the 390 engine, and narrowing further, only 1,632 were fitted with the 4-speed manual. When you add in the unique Big Bad green paint, you begin to appreciate just how unusual this particular car is. It might not be a one-of-one, but it's certainly part of a very exclusive club. And yet, despite all this, the AMX remains something of a bargain in the collector car world. While six-figure prices are now commonplace for high-performance Mustangs, Camaros, and Mopars from the late 1960s, AMXs often sell for far less, even when well-preserved and boasting top-shelf options. For savvy enthusiasts, that makes them one of the best-kept secrets of the muscle car era. You get rarity, performance, and style without the astronomical price tag. The more I walked around this car, the more I appreciated AMC's willingness to be different. The AMX wasn't a clone or a Me Too product. It carved out a niche all its own. The two-seat layout gave it a unique identity, while the bold paint and strong engines provided all the theater anyone could ask for. It's easy to imagine that, had AMC been a larger company with deeper marketing budgets, the AMX might have built a stronger following and cemented itself as a true rival to the Corvette. Instead, it remains a cult favorite, beloved by those who know its story and appreciate its individuality. Looking back on AMC's broader history, the AMX also feels like a symbol of the company's ambition. AMC was often at its best when it dared to take risks, whether it was inventing the compact car segment, launching quirky models like the Pacer and Gremlin, or building rally-bred off-roaders like the Eagle. The AMX, though short-lived, was part of that same spirit. Bold, unconventional, and unwilling to play by the rules set by Detroit's heavyweights. Even after all these decades, spotting one in pristine condition feels like stumbling across a hidden treasure. The AMX may not have reached cult status, but for those who know, it represents something special. A reminder that great cars don't always come from the obvious places, and that sometimes the underdog deserves just as much admiration as the headline grabbers. And perhaps that is what makes the AMX so compelling today. Its appeal is not built on sheer production numbers, endless auction headlines, or the sort of mainstream exposure that muscle car titans enjoy. Instead, it lives quietly in the margins, a machine for connoisseurs who want something different. To stand beside one at a car show is to experience the buzz of recognition among fellow enthusiasts. Someone will inevitably walk by, pause, and mutter, "Oh wow, an AMX," with that tone of discovery, as though they've stumbled upon a rare artifact. That reaction is very different from the one sparked by another Mustang or Camaro, no matter how immaculately restored. Driving one, too, reveals a distinct character. The short wheelbase and two-seat configuration give it a sense of agility that bigger pony cars lack, almost European in feel. Yet the heartbeat under the hood remains all-American. A rumbling, torquey V8 that can light the rear tires with a stab of the throttle. The contrast between compact proportions and muscular thrust creates a personality unlike anything else from its era. It is both brutish and nimble, equal parts boulevard cruiser and backroad sprinter. Collectors who recognize this blend are often rewarded with a car that not only turns heads but sparks conversations. The AMX doesn't need to shout its importance. It whispers it to those who pay attention. And as time continues to march on and survivors grow scarcer, its story gains more weight. What was once overlooked now feels increasingly precious. In that sense, the AMX has something in common with its parent company. Small, scrappy, and perpetually underestimated, yet brimming with character. Owning one is not just about horsepower or paint codes. It's about embracing a piece of American automotive history that dared to be different, and that is perhaps the greatest reason it still resonates today.